Hello, world, and welcome to Grounded and Guided. I'm your host, Lynette Waltham, and I'm just so glad that you are here in this moment with me today. This episode is all about me introducing myself to you. This is an opportunity for you to get to know me and connect with me on a deeper level. I'm going to share my story and how I became a channeler and energetic healer. And unlike a lot of other energy workers, healers, this is something that I had a connection to at a young age. This is a skill and a passion that I really grew into. And as I shed and I healed many layers of my conditionings and my beliefs that didn't serve me. And the more I let go and the more I trusted, I recognized the stronger my channeling and energetic skills become. As a kid, I recognized that I was a feeler. And today I could say that I was probably very empathic, but I was maybe in an environment where feeling and being very opening and loving wasn't necessarily how I was able to show up. So, in a way to kind of protect myself, I realized that I shut down those abilities to really feel and started to put up walls. One of the protection mechanisms that I recognize for myself to help me process big feelings and big emotions that weren't feeling like stable and safe for me was I developed an eating disorder. So I kind of developed a very disconnected relationship with my body at a fairly young age. And that walked me into life from a place where I allowed the external noise to take over and to guide me and create some beliefs, some programming, some conditionings within me that definitely were not mine. As I moved into my early 20s, I continued to live a life that was quite disconnected from my body. I just allowed those external voices to even become louder than they maybe even were as a teenager and to pull me into numerous different directions. I moved into motherhood and I moved into a corporate job. And it's kind of around that time of my early 30s, my beliefs and my conditionings and those programmings that kind of come from the external that were overriding my internal got really, really, really loud. And the summer of 2017, I burned out. I had an emotional breakdown. I burned out because I was fighting myself. I was fighting those beliefs, those programmings, and those conditions that I thought were true, but my body was trying to get me to listen that that was not my truth. That was not what I needed. My soul was trying to scream at me to hear what was actually going on internally. And I remember the day that I hit that wall, my body was just like, no, 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 I can't do this. I can't do this. I cannot go to that job today. My boss was really supportive and we had a very honest discussion about where I was at and he gave me some time and I was able to just take a breath and step back and I recognized where I was at. And so, about a few weeks into being able to kind of just take some time to regroup, the group that supports that role with mental health reached out to me. And I can remember them asking me questions. I can remember them asking me what my plan was, where I was at, action steps, and I couldn't answer any of it. And what it did is it sent me into a panic attack. So today I know what a panic attack was, but that day I did not know what a panic attack was. All I know is that there was tightness in my chest. I started to become so emotionally overwhelmed that I just crashed to the floor and heaved and wept, because that is the only thing that my body could do at that point in time. And I stayed on that floor for many minutes. And finally, I was able to get back up, very bewildered about what had happened to me, but just recognizing that there was something big that was going on here. I reached out to my doctor, and she said to me, Lynette, why can't you just be? And I was thrown back. Just be. What is this thing called just be? I never had heard those words from anybody in my entire life, but it shook, and it continued to shook and vibrate and move through my body. Eventually it landed, and it was permission that I could take a step back, take a break, not have a plan, take a breath to allow myself to gain some clarity, some understanding of where I was at. And it's around that time that I knew that I couldn't go back to the job that I was in. I needed to really take a step back. I needed to really allow myself to dive into all these different pockets that were starting to expose themselves, all these different feelings that were starting to come up that I had basically contained and shoved down for years. I remember saying to my mom that it felt like my soul was dying. And I recognize that feeling now because I was just so disconnected from my essence, from my true energy. I had just let so much of the external override all of my internal knowings, that there was such a lostness that had developed within me. So I chose to take it all the way down to the bare foundation and start to get to know myself again. I started to prioritize myself, like move my body and engage in ways that allowed me to get to know who I was. I started to journal. And I just started to interact with anything that was put into my awareness that was fun and different. And that allowed me to create a relationship with myself and reconnect back with my body. I did that through exploring yoga and how there was just such a connection between mind, body, soul, and spirit. And I started to just allow myself to explore that a little bit more. And when I was walking through all these self-discovery, relationship building processes, the trust started to build within me. I had faith that I knew things were going to get better, things were going to change, I was going to feel better, things were going to shift at some point in time. But the when, the where, the what, the why, the how was totally unknown. I did know that the things that I was doing to build that relationship with myself, they felt good. And it's within that, I found a deep connection with myself. I rekindled a relationship with my soul and the intuitive being that I am. Because it's important for everybody to recognize that our intuition is a skill, it is an ability that every single one of us has. It's not a special gift that's set aside for the select or the chosen few. It is within each and every one of us. And it's all about how we choose to interact with that. And I chose to interact with that after I had an experience. So, a friend asked me to come to a workshop. I read the description. I really knew nothing about what I was getting into. It just kind of sounded cool. And my friend invited me. So I went. I had an individual session with the practitioner. And what I recognized now was happening in that session was that space was being held for me to just to be loved and allow myself to feel. And something within me just let go and opened up. And I had huge energetic relief. I moved from that individual session into a group session. And as people were sharing, I recognized that I could feel them letting go. And I was like a vacuum, and I just sucked that energy towards me, and it moved into me. And I wept outwardly, just uncontrollably, for probably a good like 10, 15, 20 seconds as that energy just moved through me. And I could literally see it and feel it leave and move. And this happened to me numerous times over the course of this workshop. And I was just blown away. I did not know what was happening, but I knew that I was experiencing something very new, something very different, and something that I needed to explore deeper. From there, I was introduced to Reiki. The same friend who took me to that group session said, "Hey, we're going to bring that facilitator back to teach Reiki. Are you in?" I did not know what Reiki was. I didn't even look it up. I didn't even research it or anything. I just said, yes, this is something that I need to explore more. And I just went, and that workshop changed my life. I took my Reiki level 1, and it opened me up to a way that I could deepen that relationship with myself. And I worked on developing a Reiki energy healing practice for over 2 years, allowing myself to discover the present moment, listen to myself, feel my feelings, and allow them to rise up in my body and be released so that I could heal. So before I ever started working with people, I spent 2 years of doing deep inner work on myself. And it's in that time that I found a women's dance fitness class that was very mind, body, soul connected. And that became such a healing outlet for me. And also another opportunity for me to connect deeper with who I was at my core, my intuition, my soul, my spirit, my essence, my truth, my authenticity. And it led me in a direction of creating a space, a collective space where people could come together to be exposed to various different modalities, teachings, perspectives, so that people could really connect with themselves, mind, body, soul, and spirit, and walk their own healing, self-discovery, transformational path. So I created a physical space called the Collective of Community Wellness. And it's in that space where I held my women dance fitness classes. And we also had yoga classes and kickboxing. And it kind of started to come together. And I was so excited. This was something, when I say it started to come together, it come together very quickly. From the moment that I said, yes, this is something that I want to do, the universe listened and put everything in my path very quickly. And I just had to say yes, just boom, 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 boom. And within probably 2 months of kind of having the idea and the concept and saying yes to it, I opened. Unfortunately, We had a little thing called COVID. So that didn't quite last. And we were shut down. I couldn't do fitness. So I needed some other outlet. And that's when it come very strong to me from my heart space that it was time for me to practice Reiki on others. And this was very scary. This was a whole other level of fear that was now in my awareness, taking something that had been so like personal and private and now saying to people in the world, this is something that I do, this is something that I am interested in, this is something that I can help you with. And I put it out to my friends, and it's amazing how people received that. And it's in that space, one of those very first moments that I was doing a Reiki treatment for a friend, that I discovered that there was something more there. Not only could I move energy for them, but as I was doing it, I started to get visuals in my mind's eye. So I did not see them how I see my computer, see this microphone, like see things as I see them right now in front of me. I saw them kind of in my mind's eye, very clear, very distinct visual. And there was just a deep knowing within me that there was truth behind this and that it needed to be shared with my friend. And when I shared that with my friend, she was just blown away because there was a very distinct physical characteristics that I was pushed to say. And when I told my friend that, she could very specifically pinpoint those physical characteristics to someone who was close to her who had passed. And it blew me away that I was making connections in this way, shape, or form. And so as I opened myself up and had other sessions with my friends, the ability to start hearing, seeing, knowing, smelling, tasting, feeling really started to become more prevalent. And with that, there was also fear of this unknown that I was stepping into. But as much fear as there was, I knew that I needed to move forward. I needed to explore this. I needed to deepen this. And so that drew me to studying, reaching out to others, experiencing various different modalities. And where I kind of went first was with the Akashic Records. So if you're not familiar with the Akashic Records, this is the library of our soul's history. It's an energetic modality that we can access. We can read various records from our soul's history. We can also use the records to do some deep healing, go to the root causes of different energies that we maybe are working with in the present. We can use it to help unblock some big blocks that we might be coming up against. We can draw insights from why we might be experiencing what we are experiencing presently. We also can use those Akashic records to help us feel empowered, to help us remember our soul and its essence. So it's kind of exposing myself to learning more about the Akashic records and learning how to work with them that I met someone who is a medium. And I was set to read him and practice on him. And it wasn't until after we'd done our little consult that I found out that he was a medium. And I just felt very kind of connected to him. So I explored his work a little bit more and I booked a session with him. And that would have been the first experience that I had with a medium. And I was blown away. And in that session, he told me, Lynette, you can channel. And it was just very much this inner knowing that I needed to deepen a channeling practice and skill set. And I just to explore that with more formal training over the course of a few years. And it's walking through that process of deepening my channeling practice that I also deepened my intuitive connection, my relationship with myself, and I really did some deep personal healing. And that deep personal healing, it just kept drawing me forward. It kept just calling me be that version of myself that I knew was there. That deep healing journey that I stepped through was another very life changing moment for me. It allowed me to shed even more layers of the programming, conditioning, beliefs that kept me so small and very contained energetically. It allowed me to release that so my energetic being could expand and transcend and get to a place where I could hold space for people to help them heal. And for me, helping people heal has really become my purpose, my passion, my mission. At its core, I realized that my work is about helping people release their trauma, their conditionings, their energetic blocks, so that they can reconnect with their truth, live joyfully, and that they can really move from this area of survival into a place of soul alignment. So that is the work that I do today. And that call forward had me realize that it was time to let go of the physical space that I had created. I spent 5 years in that physical space that I called the collective of community wellness and let go of it so that I could fully, truthfully, 100% step into Lynette Waltham energy. And that is the business that I run today. Thank you so much for coming with me on this journey, diving into my story, connecting with me, getting to know me on a deeper level. I feel so honored and blessed that you chose to spend your time with me. Take care, everybody. Take so much care. Until next time, this is Lynette Waltham with Grounded and Guided.